Today we're out near Hocking Hills in Ohio, and we are driving the Civic Type R. Chris Brower's behind me in the Supra, and we're just going to start this video off going under a beautiful covered bridge and onto a really nice drive route. So, first time taking the Type R on a road trip. We've got some pretty good back roads out here, very different from what we have back in Southeast Michigan. I've made some changes to the Type R recently. I have disabled the adaptive suspension. So it is a passive damper system and it is set to full soft. Basically, I just unplugged the damper controllers at all four corners, replaced them with damper cancellation devices, very similar to what you would use, or actually exactly what you would use if you installed coilovers and wanted to trick the computer into thinking that the active dampers are plugged in and working. So the result now is that this Type R rides so well. It is really well composed over bumps, very smooth ride quality. It still handles great. Maybe you lose a little bit of that initial front end turn-in response, but it's met with really nice cushion around corners, especially on bumpier roads. So the roads that I drive on in Michigan, everything is bumpy. There's lots of frost weathering, there's lots of freeze-thaw cycles, a lot of potholes, a lot of expansion joints, and a lot of bouncing with the stock suspension. I've also disabled the active sound control, so went to the dashboard, unplugged that, so I can go into plus R mode and have no fake engine sound, which is just awesome. We're back on the stock exhaust, and I have also opened the valve on that. So it's something I wanted to experiment with for quite a while, and I decided to just finally go for it. It's a very simple mod, free, takes about 3 minutes to do, and nice to have a little bit of extra exhaust note out of the stock axle back. Oh, what a road. A little bit greasy out today, so we're taking it easy. You can see just how nice and smooth this Type R's handling character is now. Very well composed around corners, no more bounce. One of my favorite things about this Type R is just how easy and accessible the performance is from the car in the real world. Like, it is just so much easier to drive in conditions like this than the Supra behind me. Not really doing a comparison video by any means here, but this thing really just, it's so good to hustle around a back road. And because it's front wheel drive, you get just a little bit of wheel spin. That's exciting. There's a touch of torque steer. These roads are fantastic out here. This is awesome. On the way out here yesterday, I averaged 29.2 miles to the gallon, which was pretty good, pretty impressive. That's about what I was hoping for on the highway in this Type R. Probably once the engine breaks in a little bit more, that will improve. I only have about 1,700 miles on this car. I haven't driven this as much as I thought I did. All right, so we're on a pretty good example of a bumpy back road where this Type R would normally be pretty rough. And I've got to say, if you guys are looking for improved ride comfort, this mod is actually, it does the trick. This really does a good job smoothing out the ride quality. At lower speeds, there's definitely still a bit of stiffness, but once you get up into higher speeds above 40, 50, 60 miles per hour, it really smooths out all the road imperfections. It does a really nice job of just kind of giving you a compliant ride, but still phenomenal handling. depends on where you live. I mean, if you're driving on a lot of rough roads and you really want to smooth out the ride of the Type R, you can do that with this mod and still have a car that handles and performs great. Aside from swinging for a set of coilovers, there isn't really a whole lot I want to do to the suspension. I'm going to see how this does on track later this year. Might do a rear sway bar, like a 22 millimeter or something like that, but this doesn't really need much. Super composed under hard braking. It just floats over everything. Of course, this is all personal preference. I mean, I've always preferred softer suspension. I feel like you don't need stiff suspension to make a car handle well. And in the real world, some suppleness and compliance goes a long way into giving you more confidence behind the wheel. But some people like a stiff setup, and if you do, then the stock suspension is probably a pretty good option for that. My goal here was to soften the ride for Michigan roads, especially in cold weather driving. And it's a pretty easy thing to undo too. If I want to go out to the track, I just unplug the error cancelers, plug back in the standard dampers, and we are good to go. But as it sits, I am really happy with the setup. It just feels awesome. I think the true test will be to see how these passive dampers set to full comfort handle on track, but just based on how they do on the street, I think it'll be a pretty good setup. Also, I've definitely noticed a difference in ride quality between temperatures. So the colder the temperature, the stiffer the car is. When things warm up, it starts to get a little floaty, though it's not too bad. But again, like I said, it is all down to personal preference, and if you feel like your Type R is way too stiff for the roads that you drive on, especially if you're driving harder and it's just bouncing around all the time, then for me, this modification, disabling the active damper system, has pretty much worked out perfectly. I'm really happy with the way this feels. So that's it. Pretty much that's all I wanted to show you on this video. Stay tuned for the next one. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys later.